abundant favor, us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this land. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this house assembled. Grant us that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner, to promote thy honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our child. Amen. Good morning. Please be seated. Thank you.
Thank you. Correction and approval of record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Wednesday, 24th June 2020.
Thank you very much. Good morning, honorable members and members of the press. Honorable members, the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Wednesday, the 24th of June 2020 is before us for correction and approval. Can any honorable member please move that the said record of votes and proceedings be considered and approved? The honorable member for Jara East.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to move that the records of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sittings of Wednesday, 24 June 2020 be correct and approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Wednesday, the 24th of June 2020 be approved. Any issues or observations, corrections from honorable members? We start with page 1. From page 1. I think from page 1 we can say this from page 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, actually up to page 8 the production of the questions on the other paper. Are we together? Yeah, okay. Then we start the actual corrections on page 9, from page 9. Yes, Wooly is page 9.
No, page 8. Before me, page 8. Correction number 109, 2020. The third line, the way they spell the impressed should have been IMPRESTS instead of SS. You need to correct that one, at least. Yeah. You don't get me? Correction number 109. 109. Third line. The spelling of impressed. You've seen it. They put IMPRESS instead of PRESTS. Yeah, at least we can correct that one.
Page 9, yes, Kian West.
Madam, in attendance number 7, I am absent yesterday.
Parliamentarian.
Same page in attendance, Honorable Abdullah Sise was absent yesterday. Number 28.
Pardon?
Number 28.
Abdullah Sise, I think, asked some supplementary questions yesterday, no? It was there before yesterday, okay. Thank you. Any more corrections on page 9? None? Page 10? Yes, Abasanya?
Yes, on the attendance still, number 38, Asan Ture was absent. Asan Ture, number 38, was absent. Yes, I also don't see Lamin Jesane in the list of present and absent, and I believe he was absent as well. He was, no, yesterday. Okay, but his name is not correct.
Jesane is on page 9. On number 12, yeah. Thank you. Yes, Kiang West. Sorry, Jara. Jara West.
Thank you.
Page 9 or 10?
No, page 10. Page 10, attendance. Number 35. Honorable Kajali Fofan, he was absent with permission. I was not here yesterday.
You were absent yesterday.
Yes, of course. I was not here yesterday.
Any more corrections on page 10? No? Page 11? Yes, Lower Fuladu?
Number 3, bills. If you go to the third paragraph where you have, in accordance with clause 65 of the standing orders, the Honorable Speaker invited Her Excellency instead of invited the Her Excellency.
Any more on page 11? No? Jara West, can we have your mic off, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. 12, page 12? Yes, Sabasanya.
Yes, if you go to the question for March 2020, second paragraph, the question was orally answered by the Honorable Minister. I think it's Her Excellency, the Vice President. Yes, it should be the Vice President. And equally the same, if you go to the second question, the same thing is repeated.
Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. And the last page, 19. I take it that we are all satisfied with the records and we are all together. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Wednesday, the 24th of June, 2020, be approved with amendments. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Clerk, May we proceed, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable members will recall that the motion for the second reading of the bill entitled Access to Information Bill 2019 was moved by the Honorable Attorney General. The motion was seconded and the debate on the general merits and principles of the bill ensued. Thereafter, the bill was referred to the Assembly Business Committee for committal, and the ABC, that is the Assembly Business Committee, committed the said bill to the Select Committee on Education, Training, and ICT for scrutiny and to report back to the plenary. The committee is today scheduled to table its report before the Assembly. And once the report is tabled, debated, and adopted, next stage of the bill, which is the consideration stage, will be scheduled accordingly at another appointed date. I will therefore now invite the Honorable Chairperson of the Select Committee on Education, Training, and ICT to table the report of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to delegate my Vice Chairperson, Honorable Member for Upper Salem, to lay the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to report on to present the report of the Select Committee on Education, Training, and ICT on the Access to Information Bill 2019. Now, introduction. I think the Honorable Speaker actually has read the relevant clauses from the standing order, and I'll just continue from the second paragraph. That is, the Select Committee was tasked to review the bill, consult relevant stakeholders, and report back to plenary its findings and recommendations on the draft bill. The committee engaged some key stakeholders in relation to the bill and noted their opinions and recommendations. The stakeholders that were engaged include the Minister of Information and Communication and Infrastructure, Moise, the Gambia Press Union, who are really the sponsors of this bill, the Gambia Federation for the Disabled, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, and representatives from different media institutions. And if you go to page 3, you will see the various stakeholders. But first, I just want to tell the plenary how did we arrive at this report. We had a methodology. And the first one, really, we drafted a work plan. And in the work plan, we identified the various stakeholders that we really needed to consult with. Then the second part was to meet with the various stakeholders so that we can understand their concerns and to also take their recommendations into consideration for this report. And the stakeholders are shown on page 3. The committee findings and conclusions. Having considered all the views, concerns, and recommendations of individuals and stakeholder institutions, the committee herein presents the following recommendations on Access to Information Bill 2019 for consideration and adoption by plenary. Number 1, that the objects and the reasons of the original bill be maintained. And this is worded as follows. The bill seeks to provide the framework for ordinary Gambians to access public records and information held by public authorities or by persons providing services for them, to provide for the procedure to obtain access to that information. In line with the international standards, the bill also provides necessary exceptions to the right of access that should be limited and specific. Thus, the bill inter alia protects the privacy of individuals with respect to personal information about themselves held by public bodies, medical records, and communication with legal practitioners, as well as security and sensitive information for law enforcement and the defense of the state. The bill provides for the setting up of an independent commission to ensure that decisions on the disclosure of government information should be reviewed independently. The committee recommends the original, which is the old objects and reasons. We recommend that for that to be maintained instead of the new one that was brought by the Honorable Minister. Number two, that the guardianship of the bill would be the Minister for Justice. Number three, access to information must be all-inclusive, taking into account people living with disability, and that information or reports shall as well be user-friendly to cater for the people with disability. And we've taken note of the recommendation from the model law on access to information for Africa that was prepared by the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Number four, requesters should mean the institution, federation, or groups. Because if you look at the bill, actually it's referring to individual or so. So what happens if an institution makes a request? So that's the reason why we thought that definition as requesters should be changed to mean institutions, federation, and groups. That should be added to the individual so that you can have a complete meaning of the requester. Number five, in section 27(3)(a), we recommended for that to be extended to read an attack against the state by a Gambian on foreign element. We believe this particular section falls short of the entire people that may act on it, that is Gambian or a foreign element. So we wanted that to be added on that particular section. Number six, section 38 refers to the extent of the exemption to be deleted. The reason is to avoid giving the ministers sweeping powers where the need for exemption arises in the future. Approval should be sought from the National Assembly in the form of an amendment bill. Because if you leave it blanket, which means they have the authority to make exemption on their own, and we don't want that to happen. So we want any kind of exemption to be made, let it come back to the National Assembly for us to, in the form of an amendment bill, for us to act on that. Number seven, on the establishment of a commission on access to information, we recommend that to be assigned to an already existing commission like the National Human Rights Commission. Number eight, section 42, that's the subsection 1, procedure for the appointment of members of the commission can be directly derived from the qualification and criteria laid down in the National Human Rights Commission Act 2017, that was approved by this plenary. Section 5.1 of the National Human Rights Commission Act 2017 states, the President shall, after consultation with the Public Service Commission, appoint the members of the Commission, and subsection 2 of the same Act indicates that the President shall appoint the members of the Commission who shall include at least 2 women from among persons. So our committee recommends that part to be also added on this particular Act. That's our recommendation. Now, persons of high morals and proven integrity who have so distinguished themselves in their respective fields as to command the respect of the public and be well versed in and proven records of respect for human rights. Number 9, subsection 2D be added to subsection 43 as any person who has conflict of interest cannot be a member of the commission. That was missing in the new act. We want this to be added on to the new act. Number 10, punishment for offenses in section 76 to be increased to a fine of 250,000. Because what we saw in there really is just a chicken change, and we want the amount of the fine to be increased to 250,000 or 2 years imprisonment or both. But we leave that to the judges to decide. Number 11, section 79, annual report and audited financial statement to the Honorable Minister and the National Assembly. We want that to be added because we also need to have a report. Whichever committee is responsible for this institution, they also need to have a copy of those annual reports. So we wanted the National Assembly also to be added on that particular section. Section 80, which is regulations. We want the regulations to stop at subsection 1 instead of the additional ones, which we believe is not really very necessary. Now, recommendations. The committee recommends that the duties and responsibilities of the proposed commissioners be placed under a special directorate at the National Human Rights Commission with the same rights and responsibilities. Number 2, the directorate to be staffed with appropriate personnel to be able to perform their duties in accordance with this Act. The Access to Information Bill 2019, we are recommending in totality with these amendments we've suggested for that to be passed. And we would like to acknowledge the members of the Select Committee for their support, and also the support of the Gambia Press Union, as well as the Ministry for Justice and Moise as well. And on that note, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much. That's the report. Any seconder? Yes, Honorable Member. When you prefect.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion. Honorable Speaker, but furthermore, let me seize this opportunity to thank the committee for doing quite a very good job. What enticed me most about this report is the methodology used, and if I refer you to page 3, that is the stakeholders consulted. Any job that an individual needs to be enriched, you need to involve all the stakeholders so they can put in their contributions that will add value to the documentation, and that's exactly what the committee has done. But I want a further clarification on, it may refer you to page 5, section 6, extent of the exemption. The committee recommends that the approval be sought through a bill, through the National Assembly. For me, exemption. So that's my worry. So probably if the committees should go further to recommend an alternative that will save time in terms of making certain exemptions in the events of emergencies. On that note, I give my 100% support to the reporter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now put the question. It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable Assembly do consider the report of the Select Committee on Education, Training, and ICT on the Access to Information Bill 2019. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Now, honorable members who wish to take part in the debate may do so now, but please raise your constituency tags so that we'll record them. We'll start with the honorable member for Woolly West. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I'm a member of the committee, but in the first place, I don't know whether it's in my pigeonhole, but I don't have the report that you are reading. But what was contentious in our last meeting, which was not completed in my presence, because I had to go and chair the meeting of the Standing Orders, no, the Foreign Affairs Committee. The contentious issue, as far as I'm concerned, is that who is to administer the act? The committee is suggesting human rights organization or human rights commission. Human rights commission is an oversight institution. They are supposed to exercise oversight on the administration of this particular act. They cannot be the administering authority. That was my position in the committee, but I left them to debate it, and I left. But the conclusion in my absence was that it should go to, the debate was between ombudsman and human rights organization. I said both of them are human oversight institutions. They cannot be the administering authority, because you cannot be a judge and a jury at the same time. The proper authority to administer this act is the Ministry of Information, not human rights organization. And if you do give the authority to the human rights organization and the human rights commission, I think we will be making a mistake. Because for me, they cited other situations in other countries. But for me, we have to take into consideration the fact that certain things are responding to localistic demands and circumstances. But in our situation here, Human Rights Commission cannot administer this act. If they do, they'll be having trouble themselves, because they cannot be administering and also exercising oversight over themselves. That is my position.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Banjul South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think the Honorable Member for Woolly West have just taken the words out of my mouth, because that was what I was going to say as well, but then he's just mentioned it. Madam Speaker, I'll go back. I'm not blaming the committee. I am blaming the selection committee. If you look at the composition of the members of this committee, there's only one female out of 17, which represents 5%. Madam Speaker, if we have such bills, for example, committed to such committees, and they look at their composition, they should look within the assembly and co-opt certain people to sit. This is a very important bill that was referred to the committee. Madam Speaker, we needed a diverse selection of people to consider this. And Madam Speaker, I am not accusing anybody of not doing a good work, but I don't think this report is to my expectation. I expected a lot more than this. I was so excited to come and look at this report. I am not feeling well, but nonetheless, I said I will come because we are going to discuss a very important issue. But Madam Speaker, I expected a lot more. If it were left to me alone, Madam Speaker, this bill will be referred back, and then referred back to the committee and co-opt members of the Human Rights Committee, some members of the Human Rights Committee, Madam Speaker, to have a thorough look again. Because to be honest with you, Madam Speaker, they've taken time, but I think expertise, there was some lack of expertise looking at that bill. This is a very critical bill, Madam Speaker, and they have missed out on a lot. Access to information is very important. Madam Speaker, they've not even looked at ways of accessing. This day and age, Madam Speaker, access to information, it should have been recommended that anything that comes out should have been legally made to be digital as well. Madam Speaker, we all know the problems people face when it comes to access of information, and it is not only limited to Gambia. We all know it is worldwide, and the way information is changing in the world, Madam Speaker, this is not a joke. I don't think this report is good enough. I am not an expert, but looking at this, I am utterly disappointed. I'm not blaming anybody. I am blaming us, because we should have consulted experts, Madam Speaker. And if I look at they said they've consulted stakeholders. Madam Speaker, when you consult stakeholders, they shouldn't be individuals. They should have consulted institutions as well, institutions that are known. And this bill is not something that we should hastily just look at, because there are lives of people that depend on this. Information is key. It is not something that we should play with. Madam Speaker, so I cannot say that I will support this report. There is no substance in this report. It should be looked at again, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My observation on that is that the honorable member should have confined herself to the report. But with regards to the composition of the committee, it was something that this plenary approved. So if somebody is of the view that it should be expanded, it should come back to the plenary for inclusion, or alternatively, when it was being referred to the committee, for the plenary to support or propose for co-opting of maybe other members. But that issue cannot be dealt with now. Thank you. Honorable Member for Central Badibu. Yes, I have all of you down. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the committee for the job done. Madam Speaker, this is long overdue. As the world is moving, Gambia, we need to move with the world. Information is the food of mind. Information is a right. Madam Speaker, going through the report, we can see to read that most of the key areas were addressed. But yet still, I have the following observation to make. Madam Speaker, I want to thank them the way and the recommendation that they have made on the object of the bill. We must feel the importance or the need for the bill, which is highlighted. And in the committee's finding, they recommended that it should be under the guardianship of the Ministry of Justice. I, for one, am in support of that. Justice.
Allow him, he's making his intervention. Please. Everybody will have an opportunity.
If you have your report, you should read before you comment. Huh? All right. Madam Speaker, as the committee was tasked to make research, to consult other people, and I think this is the best practice. This is, according to the report, during their consultation, they have seen this is happening elsewhere, in other countries. So I, for one, I'm in support of that. Madam Speaker, the report also talks about inclusiveness. Therein, we have the disabilities who are also catered, so they are not, denied of their fundamental right. They are also part of it. They must have access to this information. So therefore, it should not be only with a written record. Okay, other appliances could be used, could be email, or it could be a voice message. So we should not strict to one medium of communication. Madam Speaker, on the page 4, still the committee's finding, where they say requester should mean the institution, federation, or groups. And they went further to say, in the bill, it says that requester means a person, group, or institution who requests access to information under this act, or any person acting on behalf of the group requesting information. I don't see the idea here, the rationale here. Can you make a connection? Or to me, if you recommend, a requester to mean institution, I think in that recommendation, you should have individuals there, or persons. All right. Madam Speaker, going to page 5, where you have the president's appointment to the commission members. Madam Speaker, it has been highlighted that they recommended at least 2 women to be part of the commission. Okay, I'm also recommending that the disabilities should be catered for. At least we should be specific on the representation of the disabilities in the commission. Madam Speaker, going to the punishment or the offenses, the committee recommended that $250,000 or 2 years imprisonment. To me, I still believe that is on the high side. We want to decongest our prisons, so you cannot just because of information you ask people to pay $250,000. We can't afford it. The affordability is not there. So we have to be lenient. We can't afford it. So I am recommending $400,000 or 6 months. Madam Speaker, the time frame of notification, the committee did not highlight it in the report. I don't know whether it was an oversight, but if I could remember, it was 21 days. To me, that was too much because information is highly needed. So if you give a long duration of time, it can harm, or it can affect the development that we want to do. So information is there to facilitate so that we have efficient governance in the system. So once we have this kind of a time frame, it will impede our development or our progress. Madam Speaker, the application also, I didn't see it in your report, but I wish it to be extended to the both private and public bodies. I don't know, maybe the mover of the motion can highlight on that. And the protection of disclosure of information, the people disclosing this information, they should be protected. I didn't hear the move of the motion talking about that disclosure, but I will want yes. The person disclosing this information, I believe, should be protected, and I don't think it's nowhere to be found in the revised bill. So I think we need to recommend for that. Madam Speaker, as I said earlier on, this is timely, and it was part of our 2016 campaign promises. It was part of the campaign promises, and it's high time we work on these promises. Information is key. Information should be accessible. So, on that note, I'm appealing to the honorable members. In order to make Gambia information free, for Gambia also to move, let the past not be repeated, where people hold information, where people are victimized because of giving good information. So the bill is in the right direction. It's there to shape our democracy. It's there to champion our human rights. So on that note, I want to appeal to all the honorable members to give our blessing to such a bill with amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. But before I call on Honorable Member for Banjul North, I just wish to remind Honorable Members that during my communication, I did indicate that the bill was read and the merits and principles of the bill actually debated on before it was referred. So now we are debating on the report and also the bill. So please, if we can just confine our interventions on the report and the bill. Thank you. Yes, Honorable Member for Banjul North, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to start by acknowledging the efforts made by the committee. They have attempted to work on the assignment given to them, that is committing the bill, for them to review, engage stakeholders, and come back to the plenary to give us a report as to the way forward with regards to the bill. And they have done that effort. They have consulted, they've had meetings, they have discussed, and have presented us with their report. But I want to say that I was expecting more from the report than what is presented. They have engaged stakeholders, as they have indicated. But what I have not seen here is that what has been the position of the stakeholders. I think it would have been very helpful if that was reflected on the report, so that we will know what the position of the stakeholders who had been consulted are regarding the bill. We are dealing with an issue that concerns all of us, a right, a fundamental right, that is access to information. This is long overdue. It should have been in place since at the beginning of this dispensation, 2016. in 2017 rather. Of course, the excuse is that they have been engaged in consultations, but I believe it's never late since we have it now. But if you look at the report, in terms of the establishment of the commission, I would agree that the Human Rights Commission is not the best place to lodge the commission. Ombudsman, likewise. I think we need an independent body that would be executing this bill when it becomes an act. And I would also recommend that I have engagements with some of the stakeholders, the Gambia Press Union in particular. And that's the reason why I have said that I have not seen their concerns. And Gambia Press Union and the other relevant stakeholders reflected on the report. And that is one of the challenges. So two ways. Either we commit this report back to the committee again to further engage, because they still have some concerns, and which are legitimate. Gambia is not operating in isolation. We are not an island. We are living within a wall. And these issues, there are best practices that we can learn from. Some countries have started this a long time ago. They have been experiencing challenges. They have been experiencing progress in terms of access to information, right to information, right to seek information, right to receive information, which are fundamental. So I believe the engagement is still not late. That was one of the suggestions, that we either commit this back to the committee to engage them, get their views factored, and then come back, or this committee can agree on making these changes, some of these concerns that they have highlighted. But I believe the best way to go is to re-engage them again. Let's get another report, a more detailed report, a more comprehensive report. That's my suggestion. That will factor their concerns. They still have concerns. And in terms of the standards, I think this generally, the bill is positive. The effort is positive. Effort of the executive in accepting to have this bill in place, to have this law in place, is commendable. But when doing things, let's do it right. Since we have best practice elsewhere, I would rather recommend that we re-engage them, get their views, and some of those points. Because there are issues around access, issues around exemptions. Even the punishment, for me, I believe, is on the high side. The punishments that are being recommended. Of course, blocking information is denying access, is denial of rights. And that should be considered serious. But sometimes it's encouraging. I know deterrents are important. Having stiff penalties serves as deterrent. But in this case, I believe the penalty is on the high side. That can also be revised. But on the whole, Madam Speaker, Honorable Speaker rather, I believe that since rights are not absolute, that is, access to information is not absolute, is subjected to parameters, we also need to further engage to agree on those parameters, like confidentiality, respecting confidentiality, what is in the law, what is transparent in the law, what is acceptable, what is reasonable in a democratic society, what is acceptable in a democratic society. I think these are broadly the parameters. Since we are discussing the report, we are not going outside of the report. And the report is not giving us anything, it's not giving us much to discuss about, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know whether I want to move the motion at this stage, but let me just allow others to also give their take. But I would recommend that this report be committed to the committee again and then task them to re-engage. And before the end of this second session, they come back, since this law is needed, it's urgent. So that's my recommendation, that we commit it to the committee and then task them to re-engage and then take their concerns into consideration and reflect that in any report that they are bringing back. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you very much. May I call on the Honorable Member for Nyamina East?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I will start by saying, of course, I am in support of the report from the committee, and I will emphasize that there is no law that is 100% excellent or perfect. If suppose that is the case, then we will not have laws that are made to be amended. But at times, situation will determine, at times the experience, the challenges you encounter along the way will determine whether there is need for you to amend a portion of the bill or the law that you have made already or not. And we are giving this a trial, honorable members, because in doing so, there we will be able to trace out the challenges, the lacunas, the gaps that are within the bill in terms of execution. And in doing so, we are always mandated, and the people responsible or the authorities responsible, they have the chance to always come up with amendments if they feel that this is not actually satisfactory. But the fact of the matter is, if laws were perfect, then there will be no amendment before this honorable assembly. And that is why we are having amendments all the time, honorable members. I want us to take note of that. I don't claim expertise. The committee members also, of course, they are not claiming any authority as long as the report and the bill is concerned. But I believe authorities that are responsible, the stakeholders, that of course have inputs as long as the bill is concerned, if not all, but most of them were engaged, most of them gave their submission as long as the bill is concerned. Because they are not expertise in this. That is why the expertise were invited to give their submissions. And from my understanding, even whereas it is not clearly stated that they agreed, in my opinion, I believe coming up with this report, it clearly indicates that obviously they have agreed. That is why the committee have to come up with this report. That is my opinion. And those of you who are not satisfied, who were expecting so many things to be captured or to be incorporated in this report, here is the chance. There is nothing stopping any individual to come up what you were expecting to be captured in this report. I think here is the chance where one can always give your submission. The committee members are open to capture anything that we feel it is relevant as per the law. This is what actually we are expecting. But if you are telling us you are not satisfied, and at the end of the day you cannot give us any submission or any input to be incorporated in this report, then you are getting us into limbo. We are not getting anywhere. This is how I am understanding things. So the submission of every individual is important if you feel that it is relevant as per the report before us. Honorable members, Honorable Speaker, access to information in any country is always to be celebrated if we have such in this country, because other parts of the world, of course, they are having this in their countries, and they are doing well. And even whereas those that are not doing well in this, they are seeing how best they can amend, how best they can rectify or correct their mistakes in terms of accessing information. Because in terms of governance, accountability and transparency is very important. And this bill will help in trying to achieve transparency and accountability. Because if you entrust people to do a particular job for you, there is need, at the end of the day, if you need any information regarding the job that they are doing within that office for you to have access to that information. That is what exactly the report and the bill is talking about. So, with me, I am in support of this. The only worry that I have is the commission that is to be established upon approving this. Because we have experience, we have seen, we don't always set commissions for the sake of setting the commission. We set institutions, we set commissions to have them function. And you cannot have these institutions functioning when there is no resources in order to support them. And some of the commissions that we have in this country, they always have that insufficient resources in order to have their operation done. We have seen the like of the Human Rights Commission that we are mentioning here. It is already established, but they have this challenge. And here we are also coming up likely with another commission. What will be the financial implication? Do we have what it takes to have these people to operate as expected? This is the only worry I have. But if the authorities responsible can guarantee that, of course, they will have the support, what it takes in order to have their functions carried out, then so be it. Honorable Speaker, for me, I am in support of this, and here is a chance that we can always come together and give our submissions for them to be captured if we feel that it is relevant to this particular report or bill. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, I want to observe, please. Point of observation, please.
Please, please. Can I go? Let's give everybody a chance so that we can have as many views as possible.
Honorable Speaker.
Member for Serekunda, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We are charged with the responsibility of reviewing the report submitted by a committee charged with the responsibility of scrutinizing, considering, and advising this Assembly on the merits of the Access to Information Bill, clause by clause, so that if there is any need for review of those clauses to enrich them, we will do so when we come to consider the bill clause by clause. Honorable Speaker, the committee has completed its work and has submitted its observations after scrutiny. At page 4, it observes that the objects and reasons that are already embodied in the bill should actually be retained. That is the essence. Section 101, subsection 2, requires the bill to have explanatory memorandum indicating policy, defects that it intends to address, and any issue that may advance the sector that it is supposed to guide. Their position is that we should retain the objects as stipulated. That is paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, that the guardianship of the bill would be the Minister of Justice. Here, Honorable Speaker, this Parliament must begin to understand the bounds of its powers. Every authority has powers that are circumscribed by law, and you cannot exceed those bounds. And unless we realize this, Honorable Speaker, we will not be fit for purpose. Section 76 of the Constitution is very clear, and we must never lose sight of this fact. it states that the executive power of the Gambia is vested in the president and subject to the Constitution shall be exercised by him or her, either directly or through the vice president, ministers, or officers responsible to him or her. Responsible to him or her. So portfolios are prescribed by the president. And you don't tell the president what portfolios he's going to assign to his ministers. It's very clear under Section 81 of the Constitution, which states administration of ministries, where the vice president or minister has been charged with the responsibility for any ministry. That's the emphasis, charged with the responsibility. Who charges the president? The ministers. It's the president who does that. So what ministers do is not the responsibility of this body. It's the responsibility of the executive. That is why in many instances, in drafting, you do not say minister of something, you just say minister for the time responsible for the administration of a given thing, because that can change. So, Honorable Speaker, I believe that paragraph 2 has exceeded the bounds of our powers and has no basis in terms of the recommendation. Honorable Speaker, we go to paragraph 4. Here, the essence of paragraph 4 is to deal with the interpretation clause of the bill. And looking at the interpretation clause of the bill, Honorable Speaker, it is simply telling us at page 5 that request means an application made under Section 12 of the Act. And requester means a person who requests access to information under this Act, or any person acting on behalf of the person requesting access. I know that we've been given 2 branches of the bill. I hope I'm reading from the appropriate one. I had to consult to see whether what I brought in this chambers is actually the right one. But essentially, this is what it is saying, Honorable Speaker.
Observation, Honorable Speaker, if you can allow me. Yeah, that's up to him. Well, can I go ahead? Okay, I think it looks like the honorable member actually is not using the updated version. The one in red is not the updated version. The updated version is the one in green. So if you are reading from the red version, you are not reading the right one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope send me the updated one as quickly as possible. This is the updated one. Well, that's what I'm told. I've consulted with the office, and I hope.
Can we have the records correct? Just a second. Even me, I don't have the.
This is the updated version. This is the
By way of explanation, the one which was the green one, it actually withdrawn. It's the one that was withdrawn and replaced by the red bound one. So are we all together? Do we have the red one? Everybody? Okay, so we disregard the green one. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Then I am reading from the right document. I don't want to mislead the House. That's why I had to raise it. And from what I have, Honorable Speaker, at page 5, is that the requester means a person who requests access to information under this Act, or any person acting on behalf of the person requesting access. And what I've seen in terms of the report, it is actually saying requester should mean institution, federation, and groups. And then in this bill, it says that requester means a person, group, or institution who requests. So that's why I could not see this element in what I have. And what is stated here essentially covers individuals and groups. So I cannot see the need. Well, we can be more detailed and talk about federation group, but I believe that is sufficient, but it's not an issue, as I do not see any need to deal with that element, but we can deal with that clause by clause when we come to that level. Honorable Speaker, then paragraph 5. Paragraph 5 seeks to deal with the issue of attacks and subversion, etc. Clause 27.3a, which I examined, is actually talking about denial of request based on certain conditions. Honorable Speaker, it says that 27, yes, subclause 3, it is saying, for the purpose of this section, subversive or hostile activities means an attack against the state by a foreign element. Our committee wants that to include attack against the state by a Gambian or foreign element. They would want us to add Gambian. But looking at the clause, it goes further than that. Subclause 3b says that acts of sabotage or terrorism aimed at the people in the state or a strategic asset of the state, whether inside or outside the state. So I'm not sure whether that does not cover also Gambians per se. And they needed to tell us specifically while the first element, they focused on the foreign element. I believe the drafters would be in a better position to indicate why it is so crafted. But it seems that Gambians is embodied in subparagraph B. Honorable Speaker, the paragraph 6 goes to deal with the extent of the exemption. Let us look at what section clause 38 says. Clause 38 says that the minister, 38 is extent of the exemptions. It says that the exemptions in this part are not exhaustive and may from time to time be expanded by the minister. Well, I'm sure when we go to clause by clause, some of this language is not by exhaustive, and that seems more like literature than law. But essentially we can clean up that. And, the essence of saying no, remove it totally, and for any extension to come by way of an amendment to the bill would be somewhat not in line with what is standard way of implementing acts. Standard way of implementing acts is that you have the Parent Act and then you have regulations. And generally the regulations will take care of these elements of extension. But since our standing order seeks to have an oversight over subsidiary legislation, so it is very important there. I would agree that we should extend that subject to confirmation by the National Assembly. That all regulations now, if we're empowering any minister to have any powers now, as of now, we must always put, in terms of subsidiary legislation, subject to confirmation by the National Assembly. I believe that will cover that element. Honorable Speaker, then we proceed to clause 7 of the report, that on the establishment of the commission, they recommend to assign the responsibility to the commission like the National Human Rights Commission. Well, if we look at clause 48 of the bill itself, Honorable Speaker, clause 48 is already clear. The independence of the commission. It says the commission shall be independent and autonomous. How can we put it under the jurisdiction of any other authority? It says that it should be independent and autonomous. So we're talking about an independent and autonomous commission. And therefore, we cannot talk about such a commission being integrated with the human. Otherwise, we should amend their act and forget about all this and inject all the other responsibilities in that act. Otherwise, it will not make real drafting sense. So, Honorable Speaker, that cannot be, and we must not even entertain it. So, Honorable Speaker, we've seen then the recommendations under clause 9. That is the terms. Well, first of all, in terms of the section 5.1 of the National Human Rights Commission, that is given to us as an example. And clause 8, Honorable Speaker, which talks about the procedure of appointment. Well, again, the procedure of appointment is clearly stipulated in the Constitution, and we cannot reinvent it in any way. Section 175 of the Constitution provides for how public enterprises should actually be established. This is these public bodies that are outside of the public service. Section 175, subsection 2 says that the members of the board of directors or the governing body of a public enterprise shall be appointed by the president after consultation with the Public Service Commission. And in that regard, they should be selected from amongst persons of integrity, competence, and maturity of judgment. So essentially, we can add anything else. We can add, there is one woman to, anything else can be added, but that cannot be waived. It is something that must be there. That power cannot be abrogated. But after emphasizing the power in the bill, we can add any other thing, that will ensure that we achieve the aim for which it is set. And the same thing, in fact, when you come to deal with the bill clause by clause, you will see some of the issues in terms of the chief executive. All those are already stipulated by the Constitution, and if we want to add, we can add, but we cannot subtract. So we'll deal with that when we deal with the issue. Honorable Speaker, then the last element here is in terms of punishment. Well, this we are here to debate. The issue of offense and issue of punishment must be looked at from a human rights perspective. The world is moving away from punitive action. Is really moving more and more into really helping people to be rehabilitated to do what is right. So substantive justice helps the individual to move away from what is wrong and do what is right. So do we become very punitive, so punitive that we lose the essence of justice? So our mind must really be restricted towards pushing people to do what is right and then not the punitive dimension. I believe that's a debate among us. When we come to the punishment clause by clause, we will know exactly what to do. Honorable Speaker, I conclude then from that angle that based on the recommendations that had been made, essentially is for us to place the duties of the Commission under the human rights, I think number one is clearly not tenable. And the two, the staff, well, if we look at clause by clause, we'll see how we will ensure. It's our duty now to ensure that it is staffed with people that have competence and that will be able to serve the purpose for which they are appointed. And in terms of the last recommendation that we should move with the amendment and pass it, well, we'll move clause by clause, Honorable Speaker, and we will definitely clean it up and try to do our best to ensure that what we have will be in line with international standards. But then some members have observed, Honorable Speaker, that consultation has been done. If the committee comes back to us and says they have done sufficient consultation regarding the clauses, clause by clause with all institutions, and they are satisfied with essentially all the other elements that they have not covered with the report, then we should be able to move on and consider the bill. But if they, by virtue of what the members have said, can see that it is important to call institutions that are primarily interested and go through them for those institutions to identify the clauses that are still not agreeable to them, and they want to report that, then that will guide us when we come to review the clauses for ensuring that we delete anything. We are the lawmakers. Nobody makes the law here. We make the law. So what is essence is that at the end of the day, the product is what we want it to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure the committee has taken note of those observations. Cantora, Honorable Member for Cantora. That was why I said just wait for your turn.
Yes, it's okay. I was just wanted to observe that already the merits and principle has been debated, and what is really of essence is to really go into the proposed amendments made by the committee. First of all, I would like to also thank the committee, and I think Member for Serakunda has adequately dealt with the issue of punishment and offences. However, we understand that maybe the committee is of the rationale that offences, when are committed, the punishment has to be severe in order to deter, the offender not doing it. However, in this modern democracy, of course, the issue of human rights has to also be considered. I think that one is addressed as well. And secondly, issue of administration of bill. And I think I'm in line with the member for Woolly West that you cannot be a judge and a jury at the same time. So basically, it has to be under the purview of the Minister of Communication Information to administer that. And also, of course, we have some introduction members giving justification that the reason why they proposed the Human Rights Commission is that it's obtained in Ghana and others. But however, it's not a strong debate. What can be practiced in Ghana could be wrong as time goes on. So basically not what is really obtained outside countries or elsewhere might be seen as best practice, and it's liable to changes, liable to amendments, and we could even do it better than Ghana if we follow the right procedure as well. And yes, the issue of disability as well, as alluded by also Senator Badibu, yes, if the plenary does wishes to really incorporate that there, to extend the membership to that, also it shows the vibrantness of our democracy and our human rights lens as far as this generation is concerned. So basically, I'm also of the view, of course, if it is possible, we also consider, because we just passed disability bill here, and then, of course, so institutions are also structured in that line to be disability friendly. So basically, it creates room for their participation in this entire process. So those are the few words I want to add, and also do hope that the recommendations are adhered by the mover, and accept so that we can expedite the process and see how best we could arrive at a conclusion. Thank you so much for indulgence.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member, can I just get confirmation from your intervention with regards to the disability bill? What did you say about the disability?
Thank you very much. I said that disability bill is before us here for consideration, and which will give us a room to cater for them in terms of this democratic dispensation. However, once it's passed, of course, it shows that the issue of inclusiveness is obtained, and therefore institutions will be also structured to be disability friendly, so that this portfolio given to them could be something to enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. I thought as much, but I just had a different version which I wanted to confirm from you. Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Bundunka Kunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank the chairperson of the committee and all the committee members for the hard work they have done. Honorable Speaker, it is often said, no matter how hard a hand work, it is difficult to realize that it is sweating. This committee worked very hard to come up with this report. They had series of engagement. They make sure that all stakeholders have an input on this bill. They met several times with all the stakeholders, and they even met us just last week to make sure that all stones, or there is no stone that is not thrown. In a sense, they try to do as much as possible to do justice to this bill, because we all know the importance of this bill. Honorable Speaker, it is said that a public property should remain public. Nobody can doubt the fact that this bill is very, very important and is long overdue. This bill is to address or combat corruption, promoting good governance, including effective governing, effective public participation in government decision-making. And once these things are absent in governance, then there will be, or people will go do wrong things and go away with them. We all know that what was going on and is still going on. It's a part of the institutions. Some government or public offices, if the information seekers go and seek information from them, like the journalists, sometimes they are being...
Honorable, sorry, I did indicate earlier that we had passed the stage of the merits and principles of the bill. Can we concentrate on the report and also the provisions of the bill, if you can, so that they'll be able to take note of all those observations, but the general principles and merits of the bill had already been debated upon, just by way of guidance. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, if you allow me to learn, I think that is what I'm trying to do. Because, Honorable Speaker, you see, all the recommendations given in this report were not just merely come out of blue, or not that the committee members just sit down and come up with these recommendations. These recommendations came as a result of interactions with all the stakeholders. The committee thought all the stakeholders that need to be engaged were engaged. And from those meetings, this is where these recommendations came from. And if we all go through it thoroughly, we will understand that whatever it is in this report, it is as a result. What comes from these stakeholders, how they see things. Most of the issues that were mentioned came up during the consultation with all those stakeholders. We have looked at all the sides of
observation, ma'am.
You see, the more reason why probably being a member of the committee, you could have allowed other honorable members to make their observations, and then you respond to the issues. But it appears, I may be wrong, it appears as if you are giving us the rationale. And these are issues that haven't been raised yet. So why don't we allow, I'll give another chance, let's allow non-members of the committee to make their interventions, and then I'll allow you. You'll have a second chance. Thank you.
Observation.
No, Honorable Cantor.
I want to observe, ma'am.
You have already made your...
I want to observe him.
Honorable, I will not allow his observation.
Thank you very much.
I will not allow his observation.
Yes, please. I'll give it, let's allow other honorable members, and I'll give you a chance afterwards. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll note that you're on again. Bundu Kakunda. Thank you. Yes, upper full, it's not there. Latin Kunda Sabiji. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Let me also join the rest of the members to acknowledge the job of the committee. That's the Select Committee on Education, Training and ICT on the Access to Information Bill 2019. Honorable Speaker, if you look at their report, I think I am quite satisfied with what they come up with. Because looking at the methodologies that they use, key among them, if you look at the second bullet point where they say meeting with the stakeholders, this is a key. It's a very important area that they have looked at. And then looking at the stakeholders that they've involved, starting from 1 up to 15, I think this is quite encouraging. This is what we expect from a committee. When a committee is to present a report, we want the expert analysis of that report. That guide us to make to take a decision. Honorable Speaker, if you, some members were just complaining of the stakeholders, the input of the stakeholders, that's what some people are talking about. I think it might be the committee have inculcated all their views and then come up with this report. Though it's quite it's not big report, as we may expect it, but with all that one also, I'm okay with it because there is no need to come with a bulky report when you think that you can just summarize it to a very, very easy one, simple one rather. Honorable Speaker, I have a few observations on the report. If you looked at the findings of the report, that's the committee findings or conclusions. If you go to 11, this is section 79, annual reports and audited financial statement to Honorable Minister and the National Assembly. But there are no time frame is quoted. We want to know, because if you look at the 1997 Constitution, there's section 175, subsection 5. If you looked at it, it gives you a time frame of 3 months at the end of any financial year. The reports will be submitted. But here, they are not giving us any time frame.
So when we go to the committee level, I think these are some of the issues that we can look at and then come up with a time frame when this report is to be submitted. The rest of the observations have already been done, and then when we get to the floor of the parliament, I think we will add what is necessary and also, remove what is not necessary. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I also like to join my colleague to give my support to this bill because this is a key, this is very, very important that we are all waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you. Uli East.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Just want to also give my support to the report with only very few observations on the recommendations. Like recommendation 1, as it has already been said, an independent body cannot go and be under another institution. I think we should discourage that. I think when it comes to the exemptions, even though we know aggrieved persons have a right to appeal, different appeals, and can even go to court when they are denied their right under this bill. But Honorable Speaker, if you look at the issue of access to information, it's very varied, and times are changing, they are evolving. To give a blanket power or blanket powers to a minister to continue expanding those exemptions may have some human rights ramifications. So I am also with the committee that whatever those exemptions are, we should consider them as subsidiary legislation and they should come to us for scrutiny. Also, Honorable Speaker, when we look at Section 51, it has given some powers to the Executive Secretary to formulate rules and procedures and to control, direct and administer the commission. We should expect a lot of rules here, and I don't know what she is going to put there, but it's safer to consider them as subsidiary legislation that they should come here for us to look at it. Those are some of the observations I have. Thank you, until we get to the Committee of the Whole House.
Yes, Upper Fuladu, West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As a member of the committee, I think my job will be perhaps to do some clarification before the mover of the motion will be doing the more detailed one. I think the consensus would be on having the commission under the Ministry of Justice and also to have the commission as a special directorate under the National Human Rights Commission. Specifically, these were the two reasons why our last consultative meeting was convened. And there, as Alan reported, all the relevant stakeholders were invited, and then their position on the said issues were put to, for the Gambia Press Union, the National Human Rights Commission will have a more speedy process when the Information Accessing Commission is under them, and that it should base, the reason data should be the National Human Rights Commission is well structured to handle it, not on the basis of the costs that may be incurred, and that it can be a specific unit or directorate under the National Human Rights Commission, perhaps for a period. That was the position of the National Human Rights Commission, but they welcomed the idea. And for the Ministry of Information, access to information is seen as human right in itself, and that if we are to have the Information Access Commission under human right, to them it's important to do it once and for all, but not just for a period, but they have no objection. And for the Human Rights Commission itself, the mandate of the Information Commission is similar to human rights in the aspect of information accessing. That's one point. And to them, by default, Human Rights Commission will play an important role in access to information. And therefore, they also concur that it can be a department or a unit or directorate under National Human Rights Commission. That's the position of the National Human Rights Commission. And for Ministry of Justice, Human Rights Commission does not provide oversight over information commission. That was the fundamental clarification the representative of the Ministry of Justice made. That the relationship is not a vertical relationship, but a horizontal relationship. And that it is possible to have it under Human Rights Commission, which is legally possible to have it, the Information Commission, under National Human Rights Commission. And that it will not take anything away from the importance of the Commission. And that there is no problem to have it, the Information Commission, under the Ministry of Justice. Therefore, if there is need for any necessary amendment to have it under that, what we can just do is to provide that. And these are the positions of those relevant stakeholders. It was unfortunate, as Honorable Member for Woolly West highly put, when he raised the concern, he stepped out for another meeting, but before the response for those stakeholders to come, he was not around. But when he left, these were the reasons that were advanced, and that made the committee members to be convinced that we don't want to create a commission just for the sake of commission. We have seen commissions that are redundant. This is a commission from the start should be functioning effectively. There are issues surrounding information. Those issues should be effectively handled. And if there is a well-structured commission that can do that, let's have it. As time goes on, when there is a need to have it under its own, there are provisions for necessary amendments that can do, and we do it. But for a start, the Gambia Presidium is more comfortable for it to be under the Human Rights Commission based on the structuredness of the National Human Rights Commission. I thank you.
Thank you very much. All you do. Honorable Member for all you do.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll be very brief in my submission. I'm also a member of the committee, and the member for Brikama North have stated almost everything that we wanted to clarify as well. We are dealing with the Access to Information Bill. I know it is, or it will help us to have an amendment during the committee stage. I mean, nothing is exempting us from doing that. So many speakers have said perhaps the report had some certain issues. But one thing I wanted to note is the report was not done in isolation. It was done in consultation with stakeholders. One clarification I need from perhaps the mover or maybe during committee stage, is we are talking about for the bill to be under the Human Rights Commission. When we were asking questions, the custodians of the bill was between Minister of Justice and Minister of Information and Communication. And later it was said that Minister of Justice will be the custodian of the bill. And now Human Rights Commission is going to be the institution that is going to oversee the implementation of the bill. During the amendment, I think the plenary can change that from the original bill to have Human Rights Commission instead of an independent commission to be established, as alluded to by my friend, Nyamina West, Nyamina East, that establishing new commissions are also, you look at the financial burden of the country as well. If we wanted to go into all that, that is also giving us problem. In fact, it might not happen, because before you establish the commission, these things are going, and it's part of the reform as well. So why not we amend it and have it under the Human Rights Commission instead of establishing an independent commission for the implementation of the bill? Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Sandwich. Okay, Basse, thank you.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. It is a good work. The committee has done what is assigned to them, and a member of the committee. Madam Speaker, it's only one thing which was missing, and I don't know where the member of Woolly West was at that moment, if he couldn't defend that during the work process. We should remember that one of the most stakeholders to consult should be ANFIU, Adult and Non-Formal Education Unit. This unit is responsible to provide basic literacy and basic numeracy in national languages to all people who did not have the chance to go to school. So I think if the member of Woolly West was there that day, he could guide the committee to have ANFIU as a stakeholder, so that to work together with them, how people who read in the national language will also get access to information. And from there, I think the proposition or the suggestion will be so that the government, if they are doing any publication in English language, they could do equal publication in national languages, so that those who have that opportunity or that chance to read in their national languages will be also able to get access to the same information, read it in their language and understand it. So therefore, I will be happy if the member of Woolly West was the mover of the motion, but unfortunately he is not. But I think the mover of the motion will take care of this portion. On that note, I want to thank and beg to resume my seat.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Talinding.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I just have one intervention that I would like to add to the bill, because the bill was speaking about access to information, and we are not against those in the system, like journalists, but we are against those who are assassinating people's character. One may lose money, you became poor, but you will not lose anything. But if you lose your integrity, that is a great case for concern. So I think this thing also needs to be looked into. The amount of fine on this character assassination join the list to be increased to a huge amount, because if you lose your character, you are absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
for giving me the floor. Madam Speaker, I'm also part of the committee. Honorable members, this committee, they have done a very, very good job. For the simple fact that before we arrived to this stage, as it is stated in the report, we have consulted so many stakeholders pertaining to this issue, which is access to information bill. Anything that you see there, it is not our own input. It is the input of the experts. In fact, independent experts were consulted with regard to this. If you see, we all arrive at this conclusion, that is for the Ministry of Justice to be the custodian of this bill. We all know it when we were at the meeting stage. And for the human right also to be, for this access to the information bill to be on the human right, because it is a human right issue. And as other speakers said, before we establish another, and it is not functioning, why not we put it under? And if their mandate is also that access to information bill. If it is their mandate, it is not bad. Looking at the resource constraint, we know what we have. Whether we will be able to run, it is in the bill that there should be an independent body. Yes, we know that. We have seen that. But looking at the resource constraint, and you know that there is another body that can take care, why not put it under? And in fact, it is going to be a separate body. A separate body. They will not control them. But they will be under them. They will not control them. But this is why we said let them be under those human rights this thing. And if you look at, no problem, you can go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, it's just observation and is allowed to me. You see, if a bill is brought and the motion is moved by the executive, we cannot come and recraft the bill. I've quoted the section, the clause. If they want to recraft the bill, they take it, they remove it from us and go and recraft it and bring it to us. The recommendation is for us to pass. It's not to withdraw. So what is being said is we cannot recraft the bill. We can only either pass it or reject it. So, technically, I am saying, I'm telling you, and you can doubt what I'm saying. I'm saying that this should be an autonomous, according to what we are given, it's an autonomous, independent and autonomous institution. The finances is, they bring what we do is for us to approve or not approve ultimately in a budget session.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, if you look at the bill, Section 38, it is clearly stated that in terms of expanding, it is the minister. But upon discussion with stakeholders, we decided that it is important after they consult the National Assembly. And when you look at the bill there, it is only the minister which has that right. So, and if you look at the new draft that is not yet discussed, it is given after the appointment, it is after taken to the National Assembly for them to do the confirmation. So I think this one also is in line. It is in line. We are not giving power to the ministers. We are giving powers after any appointment let it come to the National Assembly, and National Assembly will confirm it. But, Honorable Speaker, to be candid, the committee have done a very good job. And I thank all the members, the subject matter specialists, the support staffs, and everybody who participated in this report. On that note, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Ilyasa.
Madam Speaker, although I think I'll be the shortest person, although definitely I really recommend I support the bill simply because if you go through the content of the bill, it's very satisfactory, simply because they're going to defend the rabble people, and also, if you could allow me, I could describe the portion. The bill also will provide necessary exception to the right access that should be limited to perspective. It's going to also protect the privacy of the individual. Even that alone also is okay. At the same time, when you come to the number 10, page 5, the punishment. Madam Speaker, what I even suggested, that they were saying that if I default, or if you say something against somebody's character or try to defend somebody's character, maybe they'll fine about $250,000 or 2 years imprisonment. Madam Speaker, as far as the integrity is concerned, and human value, because if you lose a value, Madam Speaker, you are no more human being. So that being the case, I am recommending that $250,000, $500,000, and 5 years imprisonment. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. Madam Speaker, I think the committee has done a very good job, because it looks like an inquiry was set and all stakeholders were consulted. I think that's a move in the right direction. But Madam Speaker, well, I want the mover to clear my doubts on this issue. That is the stakeholders. On page 24 of the Access to the Information Bill 2019, the stakeholders, I saw an economic interest of the state. I think that portion, or the Ministry of Finance, or whosoever, they should be, I believe, I'm in with the opinion that they should be part of our stakeholders. Now, on the same page 24, number 30, the law enforcement agents, I'm with the opinion that they are part of the stakeholders, and I've not seen their names among the stakeholders that have been consulted. I want the mover to make clarity on that. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Bunduka Kunda, you still want the floor?
Thank you, Honorable, but I will stand down because after communicating with the mover, I think he will do justice to respond to issues. Thank you.
Here, he wanted the floor, so any more interventions? No? Oh, okay. In that case, I will invite the Honorable Vice Chair to respond to the various issues that have been raised, clarify, and wind up the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much, honorable members, for the valuable information that you have given with regards to this report.
I just want to point out that we're dealing with the report. We will still have an opportunity to consider the bill clause by clause, part by part, when we get to the consideration stage. Thank you.
Thank you again, Honorable Speaker, and the members for the valuable information you've given with regards to this report that's laid before you today. I would attempt to respond individually, but sometimes where things actually are cross-cutting issues, I'll just give one answer. And I also want to thank the Honorable Member for Brikama North. I owe you lunch for really clarifying certain issues. Now, the first one I would like to talk about is the consultations. And I want to be really very clear here. We've made in our opinion, in our belief, we made very strong consultations. I remember this bill is sponsored by GPU. And they were really represented all along. The Secretary General was there. The information officer was also there. And in fact, on the first day we did the consultation, a lot of media houses were also present. During that consultation process, we went through the bill page by page. And in fact, asked for their comments or their concerns. So this report we are giving you today only captures their concerns. What they agree with, we put aside, because we were trying to be innovative, not to bore you with too much information. So anything that you've not seen here, they've actually agreed on the bill. We were just trying to be innovative and also just to save us time and paper, not to include like page by page or clause by clause. So their concerns is really what we have captured. Anything else, they've agreed with, and they are here. So the notion that well, it's an opinion, but the fact of the matter is we have done, in our own opinion, we have done a lot of consultations, and they've, in fact, all the things we are seeing here, in fact, came from them. All the issues we are talking about today came from them, from those stakeholders. And we, as a committee, attempted to really clarify, and in some instances, the Ministry of Information and Communication was also there. In one of the areas about not creating a new commission, let me clarify. On quote, from the PS of Moise, it is their wish to have, not to have a new commission, but to put it under a commission, another commission that's already established. That is the wish of the ministry that actually this act or this bill is actually mandated to oversee. That is their wish. Again, like the Honorable Member Serekunda has mentioned, that is the responsibility of the executive to decide really what they want to do. And he's perfectly correct. So when they say it's their wish for this to happen, again, we let them do it. Exactly, we let them do it, and that was their wish. But just to ensure that we are very fair, we also ask, GP was there and other stakeholders, they do not have an issue with it. And that's the reason why we wrote what we wrote. Because the executive, being the, if I may call the policymaker, whatever, they said it's okay. GPU, no objection in that. The only concern that they brought was, to support what they were saying is because of they understand the financial implication of creating a new commission. Remember last year, we've actually created a new agency, Gambia Information and Communication Agency, and until as of right now, I can tell you, not even a member of the board was actually constituted. So to put this under the National Human Rights Commission is actually going to help in various ways. Economically about the revenue of the state, and secondly also, they can actually step up right now and start the work. Because this thing is a human rights issue, and again, they can start the work immediately. But let's remember one thing. From the Solicitor General, he confirmed, like the member of Brikama said, Brikama North, that the National Human Rights Commission, they are not overseeing any other commission. They have a mandate, and other commissions also have their own mandate. So basically, it's really vertical, it's not horizontal like he mentioned. So they are not overseeing any other commission. They have their own mandate, and other commissions also have their own mandate. So they are not responsible to any other commission. I think he made that clarification. However, he said that a portion of the bill, which is, if I remember right, part 5 of the bill, actually he has to redraft. Because of what we put there, it's very clear that we're going to create this or create that. So he said, if that is going to be the case, then he has to redraft that one, and he promised that he's going to redraft that one. So once we come back here to do things clause by clause, to review clause by clause, then he can bring in really what is going to replace that particular section, so that we don't have any ambiguity. The Solicitor General also, well, representing the Minister of Justice, he also was very clear that he doesn't have any issue at all. In fact, he gave an example like what happens in Ghana. The Ombudsman, the anti-corruption, and also this access to information, they are all under one umbrella. They said it's actually normal in any part of the world that actually happens. Anywhere you go, sometimes the anti-corruption agency, together with the Ombudsman, in some jurisdiction they are together. So he doesn't see any issue why we cannot put this thing together. And the National Human Rights Commission also were there, and he was there actually, and he also didn't have any issue with that. Another area about that the member for Banjul South did mention, that the composition of the committee, well, that is not our mandate. The composition of our committee was put in plenary here, and we all voted yes. So really, there's nothing we can do about that. The members, like female representation, again, I don't need to talk about that because the speaker has already mentioned that. So I think that one we can maybe take on another level, but it's okay. So she's also saying that the stakeholders, we lack expertise. So, but unfortunately, he or she did not tell us exactly what kind of expertise that she was expecting. I really don't know. So really, I cannot answer that question that she was talking about. But we thought, or we felt, the most important people, these are the stakeholders that will be dealing with this bill. So those are the people we invited. So really, since she's not here, so I really cannot dwell more into what she was really looking for. But we thought, under the circumstances, we had the two ministries together. Under the circumstances, we have the Gambia Press Union there. And under the circumstances, also, we have a representation from the people living with disability who also happen to be a magistrate. So we thought that was enough. But perhaps maybe she can give us more information about on that one. Also, she did mention also that we should have consulted with institutions, not individuals. So I'm a bit surprised here, because who are institutions? Institutions are made of individuals. So if we invite Gambia Press Union and they send in the Secretary General and the media officer, well, I think that's enough. So I really don't know really what she's talking about, so I'll just move on to another one. Now, in terms of the member for Central Badibu, and I think this is also echoed by a lot of other members about the fine. They believe the fine is too high. Well, the fine is not really, it's a way of making money by the government, but it's just a deterrent. Essentially, that's what it is. In fact, when you go through the model law of access to information for Africa from the AU, in fact, they have not even indicated any amount, any fine. They just tell you, they have not indicated any prison term. But what they tell you, where a person without reasonable cause refuses to refuse a request, has not responded to a request within the time specified, or has vexatiously denied the request, or has given incorrect, incomplete information or misleading, or obstructs in any manner the release of information, the oversight mechanism or the appropriate court may impose a financial penalty. That's where they stop. They have not indicated any penitentiary term or anything like that. So, but when we come in the floor of the House, when we are looking at this clause by clause, we can change that. That's all within our hands. Now, the memo also refers us to about the disclosure of, or the protection, I think section 80 of of the bill itself, I think it's about the regulations. I think it's also really very clear. I mean, the minister make regulations, but again, like the member Serekunda said, subject to the approval of the committee that we recommend. So I think that also should be covered. Now, the one for Banjul North, I think I've covered that about consultation. I think I've covered that. I need not go back to those ones. But again, it's not really too late. If there are any other concerns from GPU that you are aware of, that we are not aware or we have not covered, well, when we come to the floor, we can bring it up on board and we can debate it. We can change anything we want to change on this bill. Now, the member for Nyamina is, I think, overall also he was just referring about the amendments. But I must say, on this section, really what we are saying here on section 80, it's a regulation. What we are saying here is like if you give the ministers a blanket exception, anyone can come up anytime and give an exception. And that's what we are trying to run away from. What we are saying is the exemptions that are given in this bill, for now, we are saying is enough. However, in the future, if they want to give anything which is really very reasonable, under the circumstances, they can bring it in the form of an amendment bill. That's all we are saying. And I think that's really reasonable enough. I think the member for Serekunda, I think I've covered most of the issues he raised. But except one area, which in fact it was mentioned by another member. The recommendation, I think that's going to be on page 4. Number 4, the requester. Actually what we have is in addition to what is already in the bill. So it should read, it means a person, institution, federation or group, inclusive. I think maybe the way we word it maybe can throw off somebody. But it's actually in addition to what is already there. I think some other members also did mention about that particular area. Now, the member who said, Latikuna Sabiji also did mention about time frame. The time frame is already there. You'll be given a time frame on which you should actually submit those reports. And if you not, then there are some penalties that we can actually debate here. But I think generally it's about 21 days that they actually have to give those requests. Sure.
I think the time frame he's talking about is submission to the National Assembly. It's within 3 months of the end of each financial. That is stipulated by the Constitution. I think that's why he mentioned that.
Thank you for that clarification, Honorable Member Serekunda. I think that's right. I think for that particular section, maybe when we get back to clause by clause, we can amend it to match what we have in the 1997 Constitution under the public enterprises. I think it's very clear about the number of months, which is about 3 months, that they have to submit this information to the minister and to the National Assembly as well. So when we get to the Committee of the Whole House, when we are amending it clause by clause, I think that can actually also be added. Let's see. I think the Deputy Speaker did mention about, the Deputy Speaker did mention about the other stakeholders, which was law enforcement and the Minister for Finance. Well, you are quite right. When you go in the bill, I think they are also stakeholders. Because especially the Minister of Finance, these are things dealing with budgeting, etc., etc. But the Minister of Finance is not actually responsible to make budgets for any other ministry. The only thing he does is to collate what came from the other ministries. After the budget consultation process, that's where he gives them budget ceilings, and they also know what they can do and what they cannot do. So in a sense, we are saying probably the ministry responsible for this bill would have consulted with the Minister of Finance in terms of the budget or in terms of the financial needs of the commission itself. And in terms of the police, we really didn't see the need, but perhaps you are right. Maybe we could have maybe consulted with them. But we are really very certain in case somebody refuses to give access to that if that be requested. I think there are legal procedures that you actually have to follow. And in terms of things dealing with people that attempt to create any kind of issue in terms of destroying evidence and stuff like that, I think there could be some other legal laws or the legal framework that we actually can work on to solve that issue. But perhaps maybe you are quite right. Maybe we should have consulted with them to maybe get their input. Honorable Speaker, I think I've covered most of the issues, but essentially I just want to tell honorable members that this, sorry. Okay.
Honorable member, let me help the member. If you go on page 4, number 3, where you have access to information must be all-inclusive, taking into account people living with disability. From that point, I was proposing not only people living with disability, but also national language literates. And why don't you have consultation with the ANFIU, Adult and Non-Formal Education Unit, for them to be able to direct you on that domain. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Member for Basse, who also happens to be a member of the committee, and thank you for bringing that up. But these are some of the things that we can actually bring on the floor when we are approving this thing clause by clause when we have the committee of the whole House. I think outside that, in general, really, the issues we've actually mentioned here, essentially is just the issues that were brought forward to us by the stakeholders. So the other areas we have not touched in the bill because they were comfortable with them. And that's the reason why we have not even touched any one of those things. But during the consultation, we went page by page and clause by clause, and they actually highlighted really what they wanted us to say. Yes, go ahead.
Just observation for clarification, that is 38. You know, you're simply saying to delete that completely. But if you look at 80, clause 80, it is saying that the minister may make regulations for carrying into effect the purposes of the provisions of this act. And that is generally the standard, that you have the parent act, and for any substantive issues that may come, you move by way of regulations. So what you are recommending is to come up with another amendment, because that's what you are recommending. It's like the amendment. It's like you bring another bill, amendment bill. So that's what we need to decide. Should you come up with another amendment bill, which is what is being stated here in your recommendation, but you've already agreed, and I think that provision should go with confirmation. And I think once we have confirmation, so any other regulation that comes must come to us for confirmation. Now, in terms of also the annual report, you know, in annual report, to the minister is 2 months, according to the public enterprise, is 2 months, and then to the National Assembly, 3 months after the end of financial year. So I think we concur.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Honorable Member for Serekunda, for pointing those things out. But essentially, really, these are the kind of things that we can actually change to be consistent with the 1997 Constitution. And I think once we get to the Assembly of the whole House, I think these are things that we can actually change along the way. And on that note, I want to thank everybody and all the stakeholders also for attending this presentation of our report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vice Chair. Thank you very much, members of the committee, and honorable members for all the interventions and suggestions and proposals. At this point in time, we have to put the question, be it resolved that this Honorable Assembly do adopt the report of the Select Committee on Education, Training, and ICT on the Access to Information Bill 2019. Those in favor? So, with amendments? Yeah, okay, with amendments, thank you. That's the report, you're going to have it amended. Thank you. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you. The next stage of the bill will be the consideration stage, and it will be scheduled as per the agenda for the session, maybe later. Clerk, can we proceed, please, with the next report?
Thank you. laying of papers and reports continues. Report of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters on the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 by the Honorable Vice Chairperson of the Committee.
Again, honorable members will recall that the motion for the second reading of the bill entitled the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019 was moved by the Honorable Attorney General and Minister for Justice on Tuesday, the 3rd of December 2019. The motion was seconded and the debate on the general merits and principles of the bill ensued. Thereafter, the bill was referred to the Assembly Business Committee for committal, and the committee committed the said bill to the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters for scrutiny and to report back to the plenary. The committee is therefore scheduled today to table its report before the Assembly, and once the report is tabled, debated, and adopted, the next stage of the bill, which is the consideration stage, will be scheduled accordingly at another appointed date. I will now invite the Honorable Vice Chair of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters of the National Assembly to table the report of the committee. Honorable Vice, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to present this report. Honorable Speaker, the committee has 12 members. You can see the names of those members. And we have a very strong supporting staff. And some witnesses. Honorable Speaker, the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2019 has been referred to the Human Rights and Constitutional Matters Committee for scrutiny and consideration. The committee convened on several occasions to discuss on the bill and subsequently invited the Ministry of Justice to clarify some issues, observations, and concerns. During those sessions, honorable members made reference to the 1997 Constitution, the draft Constitution, and other constitutions from Commonwealth countries such as Kenya and Zimbabwe. The amendment intends to replace Section 139, subsection 4 of the 1997 Constitution, with a new provision. Our observations are: the bill was introduced by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and in justifying the amendment, he said, many magistrates are qualified to be appointed as judges of a high court, but Section 139(4) of the 1997 Constitution makes that impossible. Currently, a magistrate is only qualified under the said section if he or she serves as a principal magistrate for 5 years. And the position of principal magistrate in each administrative court is only one. This limits the possibility of other magistrates, even with more than 5 years' experience, from having the opportunity to be eligible for appointment. The provision of Section 139(4) and the proposed amendment are provided below. Honorable Speaker, Section 139(4) of the 1997 Constitution reads, quote, "A person shall be qualified to be appointed as a judge of a high court if he or she holds or has held office as a principal magistrate or master in the Gambia, or an office which, in the opinion of the Judicial Service Commission, enjoys a comparative jurisdiction in a common law country, in which case for not less than 5 years, or if he or she has practiced as a legal practitioner before a court having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in a common law country for not less than 5 years, unquote. The proposed amendment of section 139(4) reads, that is our proposal now, a person shall be qualified to be appointed as judge of the High Court if he or she has qualified to practice as a legal practitioner in a common law jurisdiction for not less than 5 years, unquote. After a careful consideration of the amendment, the committee observes that 1, the amendment has the potential of compromising standard of judges. Also, 2, the amendment made reference to qualification only and omitted experience. 3, the legal practitioner is only required to possess a qualifying certificate and not necessarily practicing. 4, the standard introduced by the amendment is quite different from what obtains in Commonwealth countries such as Kenya and Zimbabwe. Based on these observations, the Minister of Justice was invited to respond to the observations of the committee on the proposed amendment. On the 13th of March 2020, the Minister of Justice was represented by the Director of Drafting, who was asked the following questions. 1, what are the justifications for introducing a lower standard compared to the standard under section 139(4) of the 1997 Constitution? 2, why is experience in legal practice omitted in the amendment? In Kenya, 10 years legal experience is required. That is section 166(2) and 5. And in Zimbabwe, 7 years is required, as in section 179. 3, from which jurisdiction is this constitutional amendment derived? 4, does the necessity of promoting magistrates to judges justify the lowering of standards? And 5, whether the 5 years requirement for both magistrates and legal practitioners is sufficient. The draft constitution of the Gambia and Zimbabwe's constitution demand at least 7 years experience, while in Kenya it is 10 years experience. Now, the response we got from the Director of Drafting at the Ministry of Justice is that the objective of the Constitutional Amendment Bill is to enable the easy appointment of magistrates to judges. He confirmed that the exclusion of experience in legal practice must have been an oversight, and that was not their intention. Thus, the committee advised the ministry to redraft the amendment in such a way that experience in legal practice will be an additional requirement. Now, our recommendation and conclusion, Honorable Speaker. After a thorough consideration of the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2019, the committee recommends that the proposed amendment should be revised and redrafted in a manner that experience in legal practice would be part of the requirement for the appointment of magistrates or legal practitioners to judges. Thus, the committee recommends this draft. Quote, a person shall be qualified to be appointed as a judge of a high court if he or she holds or has held office as a magistrate for not less than 5 years, or if he or she has practiced as a legal practitioner before a court having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in a common law country for not less than 5 years, unquote. Honorable Speaker, this is our recommendation, and we'll be thanking the committee, all the members of the committee, for the period they have spent on this work. We are also thanking our secretaries, our legal staff, for working on this document for a very long time. We've sat over it many times before we come to this conclusion. And I thank the Speaker as well. She has always been with us during this process. I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you. Any seconder? The report? Yes, Sabah Sanya.
Yes, I rise to second the report, Madam Speaker. However, I want to make just few points on the report. Madam Speaker, as a member of the committee, I think I don't have much to say because the report have already spoken for me. The necessity of having it redrafted is being explained. And I think to have a good law, this is the type of scrutiny we need. I think my honorable members will go through and see the substance in what the committee decided and come up with their views and recommendations in the report, or about the report. With that note, I thank you to take my seat.
I now put the question. It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable Assembly do consider the report of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters of the National Assembly on the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now, honorable members who wish to take part in the debate may do so by raising their tags so that we'll... Yes, Woolly West, and then, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Please return your tags, thank you.
Madam Speaker, I think these reports' recommendations are laudable and they are very thoughtful. Every amendment, such as the one in question now, fundamentally should aim at improving and bettering what is there and not detracting from the quality. It should improve the quality and not to detract from quality. Because of the need to have judges should not have motivated the drafters of this bill to reduce or to detract from the quality that is necessary for us to have judges for our High Court. And I agree with the recommendations of the committee, and I think they have made our task easy. I don't see much to be said about this report because I think they have said everything in a conclusive way. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, I will choose not to say anything because I'll be repeating exactly what the Honorable Member for Woolly West said. And in that vein, maybe what I will have to say is let me commend the committee for a job well done.
Thank you. Serekunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. The Assembly gave this responsibility to our Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters to scrutinize, consider, and advise on the amendment bill. Section 139(4) states that a person shall be qualified to be appointed as a judge of the High Court if he or she holds or has held office as a principal magistrate or master in the Gambia, which means that if you do not hold such a position, which is an administrative position within the judicial service, requiring years before somebody retires and another person occupies, it means that the person can be there for 30 years, and as long as one has not held that position of principal magistrate or master, you will never be qualified to be appointed as a judge. Whilst the contrary is that if you enjoy in each case, that is a person, if he or she practices as a legal practitioner before a court, having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in a common law country for not less than 5 years, you will still be qualified to be a judge. So this is discriminatory in effect, that a person who occupies the bench, serving for 30-something years, will still not be qualified to be a judge, while somebody who is simply practicing as a legal practitioner, avoiding the bench, will be qualified to be a judge. Clearly, that is discriminatory. And therefore, to cure that discrimination is the object of the amendment. And that amendment reads that the person shall be qualified to be appointed as a judge of the High Court if he or she has qualified to practice as a legal practitioner in a Commonwealth law jurisdiction for not less than 5 years. Here, the attempt is to cure a defect. And to cure the defect, one equalizes all those people who are qualified to practice. And our committee has looked at this and asked themselves the question, has that really cured the problem? It appears that it has cured the problem, but our committee says it creates another problem because it negates actual practice and simply dwells on qualification. And in order to address that, they did their work and came to the conclusion that yes, this defect could be cured without creating another defect which will lead to a judiciary without people with actual practice being the basis of their occupancy of a particular responsibility. So, Honorable Speaker, the recommendation given by our committee is that a person shall be qualified to be appointed as a judge of the High Court if he or she holds or has held office as a magistrate for not less than 5 years, or if he or she has practiced as a legal practitioner before a court having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in a common law country for not less than 5 years. So in essence, it is integrating what was in the original provision of section 139(4) that deals with practice and also cures this particular angle of ensuring that only principal magistrate and masters will be hired. Now, those who occupy the bench for 5 years would also be qualified. Honorable Speaker, there is absolutely no doubt that those two legs stand firm and no one can push that particular standing to be weak in any way. So in that sense, I strongly support what the committee is recommending, and I hope the mover will eventually tell us the opinion of the drafters regarding this draft. But clearly, if they do accept, we would have cured the defect they would have created by accepting their own draft, and we would have moved forward in terms of progressive legislation. Thank you.
Banjul North. Thank you very much. Any more? Yes, Kumbu South and Majority
Thank you very
Leader.
much, Honorable Speaker. I will be very brief. I also want to join my colleagues to thank the committee. But I also must say that the committee, I think you also need to applaud the work of the staff of the National Assembly in helping you to come up with this thing. Because I know that a lot of research work has gone into this, and our units are being built up. So I can see the good work of our new recruits that are coming into this. So on that note, I want to thank you for the job well done.
Well, maybe it's not on the report, but I think he did. Stand to be corrected, yes, orally he did. But let's not, I think it's, then you could have an amendment and let it be included on the report, forming part of the records. Thank you. Any more? Any more contributions? Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable Vice Chair and the members of the National Assembly for the intervention. Now, Honorable Vice Chair, you want to respond? Or probably just to wind up the debate and maybe thank everybody.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. What I can say is to thank members for lending their support to the report. I think the question as to whether the drafters accept or would accept. From our discussion, they've accepted our proposal. And they said they are going to redraft it in that way. So I don't think there is any difference between us and them. But should they come back to give something else, we are still here. We can always look at it. And the majority leader said we should thank, yes, we thank the staff very well. Like I said, they have done a lot of work. This thing has been written more than 3 times, 4 times, and we keep on editing the text until we arrive at this situation. So we thank them very well for all the effort that they have done. A lot of research has gone into it. Like I said, there are also legal personalities between us, including the Speaker. So a lot of discussions around this text have taken place. So I thank you all for the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll put the question, be it resolved that this Honorable Assembly do adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters of the National Assembly on the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you. Now the next stage of the bill is scheduled as per the agenda for the session, and that is the consideration stage. So Clerk, can we now proceed with the next report? Thank you.
Thank you. Laying papers and reports. Report of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters on the Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill 2019 by the Honorable Vice Chairperson of the committee.
Thank you very much. As usual, honorable members, we will record that the motion for the second reading of the bill entitled Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill 2019 was moved by the Honorable Attorney General and Minister for Justice on Thursday, the 5th of December 2019. The motion was seconded and the debate on the general merits and principles ensued. Thereafter, the bill was referred to the Assembly Business Committee for committal, and the committee committed the said bill to the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters for scrutiny and report. The committee is today scheduled to table its report before the Assembly. Now, once the report is tabled, debated, and adopted, the next stage of the bill, which is the consideration stage, will be scheduled accordingly at another appointed date. I will now therefore invite the Honorable Vice Chair of the Standing Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters of the National Assembly to table the report of the committee. Honorable Vice, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. This is another document which has come to us, but because of the work that it involves, we had to come back to the plenary for adjustment so that we'll be able to do justice to the assignment. Honorable Speaker, this bill can improve the quality of prosecution of criminal cases before courts of law, as evidence found or existing in other countries can be accessed by the Gambia through request, only through request. Also, the bill can complement the work and function of the Ministry of Justice and the Gambia Police Force for effective search, investigation, and retrieving of evidence in other countries. So it's mutual. Finally, the bill legislates on a new domain and is not in conflict with the Extradition Act. The Extradition Act deals with the physical transmission of a culprit or accused person from one country to the other, whereas the Mutual Legal Assistance Bill deals with the transmission of evidence or witnesses from one country to the other. So we made some observations. One, the committee was on the structure of the bill by focusing on its grammar, the spellings and punctuations. We've done that. It is also observed by the committee that there are two sections in the bill, number 38, two parts marked Part 2. In addition, the sections and paragraphs at page 1 are not properly arranged. If you go through the actual bill, you will see those problems there. The bill further observed that the heading of Section 13 needs to be revised, and the provisions of Section 12.9 is mixed with Section 12.8 of the bill. The committee recommends Section 12.9 of the bill to be placed into a separate paragraph. Finally, Section 14.1 of the bill makes reference to Section 14, but the intention was to refer to Section 13. That's the intention. Therefore, the committee recommends that Section 14 should be amended to Section 13 under Section 14.1, which shall now read, quote, the minister may make arrangements in relation to the keeping in custody of persons who are in the Gambia pursuant to the request under Section 13. 2. Section 8.2 of the bill deals with request for assistance by a foreign country. The country requesting for assistance shall accompany the request with a document which shall specify the nature of the criminal offense for which the request relates, the time frame and the name of the authority making the request should also be indicated. The compliance to these conditions by the requesting state under Section 8.2 of the bill is mandatory because the word used is shall. Therefore, Section 8.3, which provides that failure to comply with the conditions under Section 8.2 should not be a ground for refusal of request, as has been negated the meaning of shall above. If you follow that section, you will see, even though there was shall, they don't want to make it mandatory, but we are saying it should be mandatory. It is recommended that section 8.3 be deleted instead and revised. Part 3 of the Act has two sections, that is 9 and 10, dealing with procedures for request of evidence. The proviso of section 10.1 reads, quote, for the purpose of criminal proceedings in the foreign country, the minister may subject to such terms and conditions as he or she may determine, authorize the taking of evidence or the production of the documents, unquote. The committee observed that the conditions that govern the grant of request are specified under section 8.2. Therefore, such conditions cannot be subjected to the discretion of the minister. The committee recommends that the clause, as he or she may determine, be substituted with as specified in the Act. Instead of leaving the discretion to the minister, we go by the Act. 4. Moreover, it was observed that section 12.4 is similar to section 12.2. Section 12.5 is similar to section 12.3. Section 13.2 is similar to section 13.1. And section 23.2 is also similar to section 23.1. The Ministry of Justice was invited to dilate on these sections. The Solicitor General told the committee that the sections have some differences. They are similar, but they have differences. And combining them may cause some inconveniences. The committee agreed with the justifications advanced by the Solicitor General, that instead of putting all of them together, they should be put separately by themselves. They should stand on their own. The committee further observed that the Minister for Justice can authorize a police officer under section 12.1 of the bill to apply for a search warrant. Thus, it should be mandatory for such officer to act. In that regard, the committee recommends that the word may in the proviso of section 12.2 be substituted with the word shall. The section will now read, quote, the police officer shall lay before a magistrate. We use the word now, shall. Part 5, Part 8 of the bill starts from section 35 to 38. One major concern has been observed under section 38. This section gives the minister absolute power to make subsidiary legislation. The committee recommends section 38 to be drafted in a way that will give effect